now.
Thank y'all so much for all of you coming, and I'm excited about this. I think it was a good success here already. I want to thank Natalie so much. It's an honor for me to get asked to be speak. I'm nervous, can you tell? And I'm just honored to have my baby sister, Carolyn, and her daughter Amanda, and then my friend Pat Matthews from Longview here with us today. They all wanted to come hear me speak, so that's nice. I'm not one on liking a speaker that just reads everything. So if I get a little off track and have to kind of look at this, and bear with me. But of course I know this story back and forth, and I could tell it, but I want to tell the parts that I think will maybe bless you or help you or encourage you or whatever. But in putting this all together, these are the pieces I come up with. You know, the Bible talks a lot about timing. If you'll think back, Moses had to move when the cloud moved. Moses had to move when the fire moved. You know, those kind of things. They had to offer the sacrifice when the prophet got there. Not before the prophet, but when the prophet got there. So timing is very important to God. And of course, timing is important to us as humans. A lot of times, timing is a curse to us as humans because we want to hurry up, or we want to slow down, or we're going too fast, we've got too much going, or whatever. But in Ecclesiastes, I just want to read this now, it's lengthy. It states, there's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the sun, under heaven. There's a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to tear down, and a time to build. Now I want you to notice as I'm reading this, there's a lot of things that start out with something joyous, like a time to be born, and then it ends with the time to die, sadness. But then also there's a time to kill. That starts out with something not so nice. And then there's a time to heal. That's the joy. So sometimes we don't know if what we're going through, is it God's way of like it would be a good end, but it may start out not a good end. It may start out with something you don't really like, or something you're not familiar with, and something you're fearful of, and those things. But let me finish this. A time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, a time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search, a time to give up, a time to keep, a time to throw away, a time to tear, and a time to mend, a time to be silent, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace. Now you notice through all this, there's all kinds of varieties of things we face today. War, hate, love, grief, all of this. But then Proverbs says, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but God established their steps. And that's where I want to start with my story. Now this is really just my testimony of what I've been through. And I am a liver transplant recipient. I had a liver transplant on September the 17th, 2015. And this September I will celebrate my 7th anniversary. And with it being confirmed by the doctor, he says I'm doing great. All my blood work shows that I'm just really, really on target for good health. And that's great. But it was when I was during this sickness that I had a very trying time in my life, as well as the life of my family. Now sometimes you don't go through things alone. Even though you feel like it's not affecting people, sometimes it affects more people than you think. So sometimes you have to bear with them as well as with you. I know we really did. It was just an emotional roller coaster for me. I'd wake up and I just was frustrated and I'd be so sick, and I'm a go-getter. I want to get up and do it. I'm just ready to go. But it took a lot of praying and a lot of trusting each other to keep our marriage, our family, and everything together. Not only did I endure this sickness, but my family and my caregivers, my support group, all of these people endured it as well for me. Now, I was sick. It all started on Valentine's Day in 2013. It's kind of an era in saying that because I knew I had liver trouble. I had been diagnosed several years back, and then my doctor looked at me and said, "What's wrong with your liver?" And I said, "I don't know. You tell me." He says, "Well, your liver enzymes are very abnormal." So I said, "Oh, really?" And so we went through a series of tests, and I had a liver biopsy and was told I had primary biliary cirrhosis. Now, being raised in a Christian home, and especially a Pentecostal home, I thought cirrhosis, all I thought about was drinking. But there are several ways to get cirrhosis besides drinking, believe me. My boss always kidded me and said, "I knew you was a closet drinker." But anyway, that I didn't let that bother me because I taught Sunday school. We were in the choir. We were very active in church. We went anywhere we wanted to go. Anything we wanted to do as a family, we did. I was a mother. I was a wife. All of these things that are responsibilities. But that day, when I woke up on February the 14th, I thought, something's wrong. I just had this weird feeling. You know how you just wake up and feel like, ugh, I don't feel good. So I thought, I'll go back to sleep. I'll wake up in 30 minutes and I'll feel better and I'll get up and go to work. But when I woke up 30 minutes later, I did not feel as good as I did the 30 minutes before when I woke up. So I said, I need to call somebody and tell them I can't come to work today. Well, I picked up the phone and I knew the number in my mind, but I could not dial the number. I would dial it and I looked down, how the phone flashes. I'd say, "That's not what I dialed. What have I done?" Blah, 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 blah. But anyway, through all this, I realized how confused I was. And so I just said, well, I'll just go back to sleep. So I went back to sleep. Well, at lunch, my husband came home and he said, "What's wrong with you?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't feel right today." And he said, "Well, you don't look like you feel right." And I said, "Well, I don't know what's wrong with me." But I said, "I tried to call Dean and tell him I wasn't coming to work today, and I couldn't even call him." He said, "What?" Like that. And so, but anyway, we went on through that, and I realized that he realized that something was wrong. But he said, "You need to eat lunch." And I said, "Okay." So he made me lunch and brought it to me, but I couldn't eat. And he said, "Well, I've got to get back to work." So he left. Well, about 2 o'clock, he came in. And good thing he came in, because by then I was semi-comatose. And I'll tell you what happened. But anyway, I was semi-comatose. So he just panics and calls Dean. Dean rushes home. They call 911. Ambulance comes, picks me up, takes me to the hospital. When I get to the hospital, they told me that my ammonia level was so high that it was causing this coma symptoms. And they said, if you had not wakened her, her brain would, your high ammonia levels makes your brain not function. And he said her brain would have told her not to breathe and she would have died. So the first thing that I can say in God's timing was, thank God he came home and found me. And I really think that that was something in him that God made him feel just like you felt like asking me to speak. But anyway, I could have died that day, but it didn't, okay? But this was the beginning of a roller coaster ride that I've never been on before. And I would say for the rest of 2013, I was in and out of the hospital. I was sick. I retained fluid. And while I'm speaking of that, I want to refer to these pictures. This one here is how fat and how much fluid I had retained. And this one over here, as you can tell, we did go on a trip, and I'll tell you about that in 2014, while I'm still waiting, but see my stomach and how big my stomach and because I was retaining so much fluids. So, but anyway, had retained, I'd be admitted to the hospital for a few days until they could get all this fluid drained. They'd send me back home, and Dean came in one day and he said, "Mama, how much of that fluid can you take?" He said, "It looks like your feet are going to just burst." And Marilyn can vouch to that. She'd come out there and help me, and they were huge. And I said, "I don't know." Yeah.
At least.
And I said, "I don't know," but anyway, to move on with that, the doctor began to ask me about a liver transplant. And I thought, a liver transplant? And he said, yes. He said, now think about what happens with the liver transplant. Now what happens with the liver transplant is, of course, the first and foremost thing, someone has to donate a liver. And for you to donate your liver, that means you won't be here anymore. And that's a very sobering thought, to think that someone would go on for me to have a liver. But in doing so, I said, you know, if a person is willing to donate their liver, why wouldn't I be honored to be able to accept a liver? So after discussing it with my husband and the doctor, we decided that I would walk that way. I never doubted that God was in control of me. I really didn't. I was brought up in a home. My mother had great faith. She was a wonderful, wonderful God-fearing woman. And I never doubted that God was in control. I didn't know what my future would be, but I did trust that God knew what he was doing. I didn't know why, but I knew God knew why. I did not understand why, when, how, or any of the questions that you can ask in a daily situation. But I knew that I would recover, and I knew that at the end, God would have the final say. And I even thought about, you know, if I die, that's God, that's God, because I can't do anything about this. You know, this was a situation I could not. Sometimes in life we know that we're smart enough to figure things out. Sometimes we've got enough money to buy what we think we need. But then there are times when only God can help you with it. But I do know, and I told my family, I said, I'm going to put my hands in God's hands. Because God is going to open a door, and every door God opens, I'm going to walk through. Whether it be the transplant way, or whether it be a miracle happens to my liver. Because I know that God never shuts a door that he won't open another one for you. Now the next part I'm going to tell you is my favorite part of my testimony. One night Rex and I were sitting in the den talking, and I told him, and this was still 2013 now, but after being in and out of the hospital and so miserable and so large and everything, I told him, I said, I just don't know how long I can endure this. I said, I mean, you know, I can't do anything about it, and you know, I'm bothering everybody. I was on 24-hour care. 24-hour. I had to have a lady come in. The minute my husband would, and that's what I'm going to tell you about, but he would put me in a chair and leave for work, and then a lady came in at 8, and she stayed till her kids got home at 3:30. She'd put me to bed, and he would have to come in. Marilyn can vouch to this. They had to bathe me. A lot of times they had to feed me. I was sick. I was a very sick woman. But that night I told him, I said, I think we need to seek some outside of Longview help with the doctor. And he said, well, that means going to the doctor and telling him that you want some more help. And I said, well, that's not an easy thing to do, tell your doctor that you don't think he knows what he's doing. But so I said, well, we'll see. But anyway, different ones that told me about going to Houston, Dallas, or somewhere, you know, or way off, flying to, I don't know where, out country, not out of the country, but out to different states. But anyway, we went to bed that night, and he said, we'll just pray about it and see what happens. The next morning, he did his little routine. He got up and he made me breakfast, and he put me in my chair, and I have a recliner, and he put me in the chair, and this was the routine. breakfast, medicines, a big bottle of water, and the telephone. And don't you move till I get here back. So I said, okay. So we did. But just as I heard him close the door, I was laying like this, you know how I was way back and like this. And I remember the room just started going round and round and round. And I thought, oh God, don't let him leave me. I'm fixing to die. And he said, I kept praying that over and over and over. And I said, God, please don't leave me. I'm going to die. And that's all I knew until I woke up in the ambulance. This is what happened. He went and got in the truck. And he decided to come back in and check on me. When he came in, he said I was not breathing. My eyes had rolled back. My head was all over to one side. And he just panicked. So he called Dean. And he rushed up there. Dean lives next door to us. And he rushed up there. And at the same time, Sister Lewis had come to pick up Anna to take her to school. So Sister Lewis and Karen and little Anna and Riggs and Dean all rushed in there and they started praying for me. And Dean had the EMT on the line, and it was a lady, and she said, you need to turn her. He said, I can't turn her. She weighs 175 pounds and she's in a recliner. And the EMT got real quiet and she said, sir, if you want her to live, turn her. Guess what? He turned me. And when he turned me, they said I went, huh. So they knew that I was back. But anyway, I went to the hospital and my doctor walked in. Now remember, I wanted help. My doctor walked in. He didn't even come to my bedside. He stood right over the wall by the door and he looked at me and he said, you know, I think we need to get a liver specialist. And did I ever rejoice? I was so excited. I can't see without glasses, so here we go. But anyway, so that started me getting in. He said, I think I'm going to try to get you into the Liver Institute in Dallas. And so that started it, but we were so happy. Now that was a bad thing that happened to me, but it turned out to be a good thing because that was what I needed. I went to the Liver Institute on May the 9th, 2013. They had to wheel me in a wheelchair, but I made it there, and this began numerous trips to Dallas. My little Suburban just knew when we got in, it just headed to Dallas. Rick said, I think we got this thing programmed. We just have to say, we're going to Dallas. But that started a long process. It's a long process to get an organ transplant. There's a lot of questioning, a lot of waiting, a lot of testing. You know, there's other parts of the body that's going to be affected by this liver, and you have to go through all of that. Plus, you have to have support groups, and you have to have mental tests. You have to have all this. And what are you going to do about this? But anyway, I went through 2013, and then it ended, and I was sick. But when 2014 came, I began to feel good. And I had been prayed over so many times, ministers, prayer cloths, all this stuff had come. And you know, I did have hope. I had hope that I was going to be okay. Because that gave me hope with them telling me, you're going to be all right, you're going to be all right. And even my doctor said, we're going to try to get you a transplant. With the transplant, you can be all right. Now, we'll tell you that when I went to Dallas, I only had 10% of my liver left. He said, you have 10% of your liver, the rest of it had died. And that's why they couldn't let it rejuvenate. No one could donate me a piece of a liver, you know, which they do all those kind of things. But I had to have a whole liver. But anyway, I thought God was working a miracle in my life. I really did. I said, well, good. This is the way God's going to do it. You know, you got to figure it out, you know. But every day I woke up, I didn't feel healed. I didn't feel better. I felt better, but I didn't feel healed. And you know what? I decided that I can't live in this hope. We can't hope for it. Because you know, hope is a present tense, right? But guess what happens? A month from now, you hoped. And that begins the past tense. So somewhere you've got to get out of that hope into the next level, which of course is going to be faith. But anyway, and most all the scriptures start out with now, hope, you know, now, like now, hope. But anyway, 2015 arrived, and of course I was not healed. And that picture that you see of me in that, with that good looking man, right here is 2014, because I was able to take a trip to see my brother in Wisconsin. So, but anyway, I will say that most everywhere I went in 2014, even though I felt better, I endured it, okay? But anyway, 2015 arrived, and I became sicker than ever since I'd been diagnosed. I tell you what, I was so sick, I was in so much pain, but I was seeing the doctor every 2 weeks, and then I think about that time is when my hope turned into faith. And the reason of that was because one night, it seemed like every time I ate, I got such stomach cramps. And I wasn't digesting my food, I found out for sure. But anyway, my stomach would cramp, and then it would be just so painful, and besides the pain and the cramping, you know. But one particular night, or evening, it was about 5 o'clock, and we ate, and I went, and I was laying on the couch, and I said, Riggs, my stomach's starting this over again. He said, well, let's call Karen and Dean. That's what we always did. She said, we have to stop everything, come up here and see you. I said, I know it. That's good. But anyway, so we called Karen and Dean, and she called Brother Bell, which was her grandfather. And he came over, and we all prayed. And then everybody, and my pastor got on the phone. He prayed with me and everything. So, but my stomach was still hurting. It ceased, but it was still hurting. And Karen looked at me and she said, we're going to keep praying. And I'm here to tell you, she touched God for me that night. And I knew she had touched God. And she said, you're going to be all right. She said, you're going to be healed. And I guess that's when my hope turned into faith. I had faith that God was going to do it. That's when I didn't doubt I was going to die. I knew I was going to be all right, but I just didn't know how it was going to be. And anyway, on the morning of September the 8th, I got up to go to the bathroom, and it was about 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I got and went to the bathroom, and I tripped and fell. And when I did, I broke my pelvic bone in 3 places. So they took me to Longview Hospital. They picked me up in an ambulance and took me to Longview Hospital. And I refused to stay. And I told them, I said, I need to go to Dallas. If I'm going to be in the hospital, I want to be in Dallas. Because I was thinking maybe I'd get a liver, you know, or something, who knows. But when I got there, so we went home, and the church contacted us and wanted to know if the choir could come sing for me. And I said, well, sure. And there was a couple of us that lived pretty close together, and he had a brain tumor, and of course I had this liver problem, and they said, the choir's coming, and we'll just sing for Brother McDaniel, who it was, and said, then we'll come on over and sing for y'all. And I said, oh, that's so great. Well, they were going to just sing outside. And I said, oh, I'm a people person. I love people. And I said, no, y'all come on in. Of course, I'm laying flat in the bed. I think back now, and I said, can you imagine? I had pillows stacked up over there. The bed was just all, you know, and here I am laying in pajamas. But anyway, and I'm pretty sure my house was dirty. But anyway, they came in, and they began to sing. So, they began to sing. And once they started singing, people began praising, and people began praying. And I want you to know, I've been in a lot of prayer meetings, but this one will go right up there with it. Any good one you've ever been in. And closest to the upper room experience I had ever had. And by that I mean the presence of God came in that room. I mean, it came in that room. And people were praising, singing, praying, and just like the upper room experience, and if you don't know what I mean, that just means we all begin to speak in tongues, we all begin to worship God, we all begin to, and I could feel that, and I knew that God was taking care of some things for me. If nothing else, probably for my family, for my support group. Now that was not a good thing that I failed, but it ended up being a good thing. I entered the hospital. The doctor told me, I called Dallas, and Dallas told me to get there in the morning, and I went to Dallas the next day. And they score you with your, when you're getting a transplant, they have a score, and it goes from like 10 to 40, I think it is. And I had stayed around the 20 mark. And they like for it to get about 20. Now with the liver, you almost have to die to get a liver before you get a liver. With kidneys, they don't want you to get too sick, but because of kidney failure. But anyway, I had been scoring about 23, 24, something like that. But when I got to the hospital, he said, well, and I had just seen him the week before, and he said, oh, good thing he said, well, maybe I shouldn't say good thing you failed, but he said, good thing you came, because he said, your score has jumped to 28. And he said, we have got to find you a liver. And so I said, well, good, you know, I'm ready. But anyway, what I did not know in the meantime, while all the time I'm waiting on this liver. Now, I got my liver on September the 17th, 2015, but I got went to the hospital first time on 1st of February of 2013. So see, that was almost 3 years there. And in this time that I've been going back and forth to Dallas, and between the time I was even in the hospital, they took me off the transplant list twice. One time in 2014 when I was better, my insurance took me off because they didn't think I needed it. But then I didn't know, but when I got up here to Dallas and he told me all of that, as a matter of fact, we didn't go prepared to stay. We would go prepared to stay overnight because I had to do that a lot, but we did not go prepared for a liver transplant. So I told the doctor, I said, I've got to go home. He said, oh no ma'am, you won't go home this time. He said, you won't go home till you get a new liver. And I said, well, we don't have clothes, my husband, you know, all this. And he said, well, we'll take care of everything. You just lay here and get well. But I did have to go to ICU because of my pelvic was broken. I couldn't get up. I was very sick. So I didn't know while I was down there, they didn't think I was gonna make it. So they took me off. And the medical team, it's a medical team of 7 people. And they evaluate you, and they're assigned to your case, and they stay with you from the time you come to Dallas until you get through with your transplant. And even today, which I had a little heart problem, so that's another little story of its own, but I had a heart problem, and that same heart doctor takes care of me even today. So they stay with you when they're assigned to you. But I didn't know that they didn't think I was gonna make it, so they took me off the list. But on September the 16th, which was the day before my transplant, the little nurse came in and she said, we're gonna get Miss Bussey up. So she calls physical therapy and says, we're gonna get Miss Bussey up. And the physical therapist says, oh no, we're not. Said, we've tried that before. Said, the woman doesn't want to get up. The woman gripes because she has to get up. And she said, besides, she's hard to get up. We're not gonna get her up. And the nurse said, oh yes, we want her up. So she sits me, they get up, they come on in and they sit in a chair. I don't remember any of this, but you can imagine I was so sick. But I sat up in the chair, and about 5 minutes I was in that chair. Here comes the team. And they say, oh my goodness, Miss Bussey is sitting up. And guess what? They put me back on the list, and guess what? That very afternoon, I got a liver. Yes. So, I'm just going to conclude by saying, that this is one perfect timing God did for me in my life. I still don't even know why, and I don't have to know why. But it has changed my attitude of life. It's changed a lot of things about me. Because things that that used to matter don't matter quite as much anymore. But I do know this, that God looked in time. I don't know when my donor was born, but he looked and said, this life will end on September the 16th. So I'm going to put a liver in there that's perfect match to Miss Carolyn Bussey, because she's going to need it. Because they told me, they said, you got a perfect match. They said before they sewed me up, my liver started functioning. They came out and told my husband, they said, before we even sewed her up, we took the old out, put the new in, and before we sewed it up, her body began to, and I can say this because we're all ladies, but you know, the liver produces bile. And she said her body began to excess bile right off.
Oh, that's great.
But they did draw, and that's what I was going to tell you in this picture now, is down here in the bottom, this is liquids drawn off of body during surgery, and I had 9 liters drawn off my body during surgery. And I still weighed 160, I went in weighing 172, and I weighed about 165 maybe out of surgery. But I was there, and I did have a lengthy stay. I had to stay 50 days because of mostly my pelvic bone. This is my doctor. This is my first day back to church. I'm excited about that one. Now these over here, now this is my little nurse that stayed with me. He was assigned to me when I came out of surgery, and he stayed with me that whole first 12 hours. Now you do not wake up for 24 hours because they want to make sure the liver is functioning properly, and if anything goes wrong, they can rush you right back into surgery. And I don't know what they've done. I don't know where I got a liver, but they've done something. But anyway, and then of course you see the next picture is Marilyn feeding me. I think you came back on Sunday after my surgery, or
It was the second day.
no?
It was,
Second day?
the second day.
Yeah, second day. And of course, this is my little honey down here. And can y'all see how black my hands are there?
Yes.
My whole body, I don't know why, but my whole body, my whole hand, I guess I have so poison, my whole arms looked like they were charcoaled. And that started seeping. They had to wrap my hands because all that seeping. Okay, and then this is my first day. This is not my first day home because you see my first day home, I fell and broke my arm. But anyway, I fell and broke my arm. I gotta tell you, this is the funniest thing. And I told Rick, I said, oh, I fell. He come in there, you're gonna be the death of me. I said, sorry. But anyway, many nurses have told me how miraculous now. It's hard to get a doctor to say it's a miracle, okay? But this magazine, I was featured in this magazine, Shine. It's a Methodist hospital magazine, and I'm featured, and it says the best thing that ever happened to me. Now this is written from a medical standpoint, so they don't give God any praise, but still, it's from a medical standpoint. And then after that, I'm known as the poster child. And so this is me, and they said I talked about a lot of stuff I don't remember, but anyway, they said I talked a lot about fishing, and so they wanted me to go. This was a professional photographer that came from Dallas Methodist, and he wanted me to go to the lake and get out in a boat with him. And I said, no. I said, I've got a pond. I said, you can just come down here and take my picture fishing in my pond. But anyway, this is the article on me. Then later, if you will look right here, they made a patient recognition board. I think this shows better, and I'm pointing, and my picture's right there, the same picture that's in this Shine magazine. And what they did is they featured different ones that had such a great success story. And then here's me right out of surgery. And then, of course, this is Amanda and Marilyn up here. And this is my son, Dean, and my granddaughter, Anna. And this is physical therapy getting me up. I had to conclude that one. They love it, and that's in ICU, so.
Is that when they got you, is that the one that they said you were gonna set up?
Yeah. Yeah, I said, oh, no, we're not.
She don't want
And
to.
you know, I still go back to the hospital, and she's not the friendliest person to me. I go back up there, and if you need to go, and I'm just gonna say this, and Pat can vouch for this, if you need to go for a liver problem, I can get you in. I'm serious. That's a big hospital, but I can get you in. I stayed there 51 days. I got to know so many people, and I stayed there 41 days and they took me by non-emergency ambulance on a stretcher to rehab, and 10 days later I walked out. It was 8 hours of rehab. I got up every morning, and they had strict rules, and they said if you don't abide by them, you go back. So I didn't want to go back. So, okay, any questions or?
I have a question. What do you have to do now that you have a new liver to keep, like, does your body, is there something wrong that made it damage, or, I know it wasn't alcohol or anything,
Yes.
but is it something in your body?
They concluded that probably, because they said I had had it a long time for it to have died that much. They concluded that I probably somewhere contacted some kind of virus in my teens that attacked my, now I was 60, what did I say, 62, I think, when I had my transplant. So, but they said I probably had contacted something earlier, before adulthood, and they said that it had just started. But now that I am post-transplant, number one, there's a lot of restrictions. I can't eat at salad bars, I can't eat at buffets, because people, touching.
Lots of
You have to be careful.
But you can't eat salad.
I can eat salads if I make it myself, or if I come to your house and you made it, yes.
Oh, okay.
But no, I can't order a salad out of the restaurant, no.
Because of all the pesticides?
Well,
and
they say
don't
there's
wash
too
their
much
stuff.
pesticides, and it's too risky with the employees not washing it well. I can't have strawberries, I can't have kiwi, and I can't have pineapple, which that kind of upset me, but that's okay. I can't eat any rare anything, which I wasn't a rare meat eater, but you gotta have everything well done, everything. I can't eat eggs over easy and stuff like that,
What about tomatoes, since it has a lot of acid in it?
Yeah, well, I don't know why. Now, you're put on a anti-rejection drug called Procrap. And I started out taking you start out taking it like, I had to get up at 4 and take it. I took another one at 6, I took them at 9, I took them at 12, I took them at 2, I took them at 4, and then I took them 2 or 3 more times before I went to bed. And now, I'm doing so well until I'm on 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. So, that's good, a 9 and 9, but it's very, very restricted to the time. You have to keep them 12 hours apart, and they set that time, so I'm still there, so. But they never said anything about tomatoes, so I don't know if it's the kind of acid that a tomato has versus what a fruit has, I don't know. But I do know, it probably thinking about it, when you eat them, there is a little different acid feel to them.
And Sister Carolyn, is it true, I've heard all my life, everything goes to that liver first when it goes in your mouth?
You take a swallow, I found this out, you take a swallow, and it immediately goes to before it goes into your stomach, it goes down and it goes to your, give me a minute here, it goes to your,
Liver, gallbladder?
pancreas. Okay, now I'll say, and that immediately shoots over to the liver. Now the liver processes all of this, and then it lets it dump into your stomach. Well, like I said, as adults or as humans, we have waste, which in 2 forms. So therefore, all of this is made and put into the right place. But what needs to go through the stomach, the liver will absorb all of the bad stuff, I guess you would say. And by that, that's how it produces the bile it has, so. Which I didn't have that, so.
Did they tell you to eat liver?
As a matter of fact, I can't eat an organ at all. I can't eat liver, I can't, no.
Probably no oysters or anything.
No, I can't have oysters.
Shrimp.
I can have shrimp, but, I don't eat shrimp because it's 100% cholesterol, so, but anyway.
Oh, that's right, Rex
Yeah.
tells me that all the time.
I don't have a cholesterol problem, but they have discovered I have a little stoppage, clogged artery. Yeah, cholesterol. But anyway, there's a lot, after 3 years, there's a lot you can tell, and by the way, back to bragging about but it was all God, but I was featured on TV. They had a thing on, transplants, and, the Tyler station,
KLTV.
was that KLTV? Okay.
KETK?
KETK. KETK came out, and what happened was they had a series of transplants, and the reporter said, well, why don't we have somebody that had a liver transplant? And they said, well, I don't know. And the other guy said, well, I know where you can find out, Dallas Liver Institute. Well, the minute they called, they said, I can tell you the perfect person for that. So they gave them my name, and it was just a short, they don't do much, but anyway.
I have a question.
Uh-huh.
You watch these medical shows and,
Mhm.
someone comes in that's been in a bad accident or something,
Uh-huh.
and they need, liver or lungs or kidneys or
Uh-huh.
something, and they get it, immediately. How does that
That's a show.
Well, no, but I mean, in real life, do people not get transplants
Yes.
real quick?
A lot,
They wait
no.
years, don't
You
they?
have to wait, you have to be on, usually a live.
My situation was I was B positive. Now that's what you go by, your blood. And I was B positive. The good thing about B positive is that it's rare, so therefore, when one comes available, more than likely you're higher on the list than a A or a B. But the bad thing about that is it is rare. So therefore, there's not many people gonna be in an accident that's given their liver, whatever.
So any organs are never kept or stored.
I could have one more question I just thought of too. When you say they match you, now could you have a male, or do you have to have a female,
No.
or do you have to have someone your size?
They go, but your size.
Your size.
All livers come in different sizes. Now, I didn't know that either till I found this. But I'm small, they go by your rib cage, and I'm small rib caged. Now, you can be large person and still be small rib cage, but I'm a small rib cage. So he said I could have anybody's liver from a teenager on, because by the but I will tell you this, and I've told this table over here, your liver never ages. Now, that's one thing. Because he said, when you die, your liver will be the best thing part about you, because it's, but anyway. But, what?
Learn so much.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And I learned a lot, and still am learning. As a matter of fact, I went back and read this again, and I didn't know that's what primary biliary cirrhosis means, that it is a disorder in the digestive system. And I just read that I've read that since I've talked to you, because I just want to read my article again, I keep it out on the table, but, I wanted to read it again, but anyway. But I know everybody, like I said, I know everybody up there from the city. Oh, I was gonna tell you, I got Pat's husband. Pat's husband was a totally different situation than mine. He had liver cancer, and that's really,
And he would have been able to get the transplant, but it had already metastasized to his it come from his colon to his liver. So it had already metastasized, so they wouldn't put him as a
And
candidate.
no organ is ever stored or kept like blood or anything like that. You have to get it from
as a matter of fact,
certain time.
when you're on the list, as a matter of fact, I am so happy this week because we referred a lady there that got, about time I had my transplant, she got sick, and we told her husband, they're real good friends with our son, and we told him, my husband called him and went over to his house and said, Joe, you've got to get married to Dallas Methodist, or the Liver Institute. And so she did, and this past week, she got a liver. But they took her, they called her on Sunday and said, pack your bags, because when we call you, you have 3 hours. And this is so funny, they tell you, they said, when we call you, we want you to take a good shower and wash your hair. Because they said, we don't have time to clean you up when you get here. So, and they said, we want to be able to put you on a stretcher and rush you right in to start prepping you. And so you do have just a few, and whenever they found out, as a matter of fact, I got to meet the guy, and that's a coincidence. I was in Branson, Missouri, of all places, and I got to meet the parents of the young man that does the helicopter and goes and gets the transplant organs. Yes.
Have you met the family?
No. I do not know my donor, and I have not met my family. I met their family.
I have family that have been donors, that's why I know a little bit
Well,
about
we
it.
have a party, Dallas Methodist, did they go to Dallas?
No, they're in, one's in Oklahoma and one's in Florida.
Well, they give us a Thanksgiving party. It used to be a Christmas party, and then we decided we wanted Thanksgiving because it was more Thanksgiving than it was Christmas. But, we have a Thanksgiving party, and, of course, the kidney donors, all their families love to come, you know. And, there's one family that all 8 of them have donated, and some of them have donated to each other, and then there's some that have donated out, you know. But anyway, they encourage you to acknowledge the donor, and I wrote a letter. I didn't write it because at the time, when I was so sick, because some people, this lady I was telling you about that had the transplant last week, she's already home. And now, I mean home, you can't leave Dallas, but she's in a facility where she can go back and forth to the doctor. But me, I was very sick, and of course I hadn't walked in so long because of my pelvic bone, but anyway, and then I had a heart issue, and they had to rush me in and do surgery on me with that, so I just had all kinds of complications. But you know what I said? I said, God was just cleaning me up good.
Take care of it all.
Yeah, just get it over with. But Marilyn can tell you, I've got more energy now than I had in years. Of course, they put you on prednisone, and I'm a hyper person anyway, but I was taking 19 prednisones a day. Oh my goodness, so I was just jumping around. Matter of fact, my doctor he comes to Tyler, and one morning we had an appointment with him there, and he said, Rick looked at him and said, Dr. Mantry, you had to get up early to come from Dallas to get here by 8 o'clock, didn't you? And he said, yes, and I just decided I wish I had taken what she's taking.
He is a good doctor, though. He took care of my husband for, actually.
Listen, I
he was
really
able to
appreciate
survive.
all of y'all coming. Yeah, I appreciate all y'all coming and listening to me, and your attendance.